haven't got the exact dates in my head. When did Dusty arrive at the club?
2010.
2010.
Yeah,
Sounds
or end of
about
09.
right. Okay. What were your initial impressions of Dustin Martin? And I obviously asked you that because he became the central figure in the premiership. You know, only bloke with Norm Smith's 3 of them. He's done pretty well.
Yeah, he's been a pretty handy player.
Yeah,
My initial thoughts were, I was confused probably. Yeah, the biggest knock on me was if you weren't programmed like me, I probably couldn't understand why or how or what made you tick.
So
initially, there probably wasn't much of a relationship just because we kind of lived different lives.
In what way?
I had admiration for the way that he played, and he instantly came in and had an impact. And I loved playing with him. And, even just, when he'd come over for dinner, I remember he drove this horrific Astra. I reckon it was wheel alignment was no good. I'm pretty sure it was on a spare tyre. And like the first time he came, I lived in South Street in Ascot Vale, and he would have done 40 laps of the roundabout just near my house. And it was just going, well, I don't even know where that car is. I'm sure it's been driven off a cliff or something like that. But he was just different. He was a young kid. And I suppose the best way to explain Dusty is like he came into our football club as an 18-year-old, but realistically maybe a 13-year-old, but grew up kind of 2 or 3 years every year that he's been there, to the point where he was a hugely impactful leader and person within our organisation, and that's got nothing to do with his football talent and skills and the moments that he's grabbed a hold of in game as well.
I used to do the NAB Rising Star stories for Channel 10, and I used to say there'd be 20 odd. And they were great because you met these young footballers that have gone on to become the Joel Selwards and Tom Hawkins and Scott Pendleburys and Dustin Martins. And I used to go and see the great shifter Kevin Sheehan say, all right, these 20-odd blokes, who's got the stories here that we should go and talk to them? And he said, this Dustin Martin, he's going to be unbelievable. But Shifter would say that about everyone in the draft. Drafted. Yeah. This bloke's the next Wayne Carey. This bloke's the next Lee Matthews. And that's one of the great things about Shifter. He's such a positive dude. He said, if you can get some time, try and do a story with Dustin Martin. So it would have been Dusty's first year when he would have been nominated for the Rising Star. And his father, Shane, was involved in a trucking business. And we went out to the eastern suburbs. And I hadn't met either of them before. And it was a recycling business. Yep. And we got some shots of Dusty driving the truck under his dad's eyes. And, Dusty didn't have the neck tattoos at that stage. But his dad was a seriously intimidating looking dude, and I was intimidated by his dad, Shane. And I'll never forget it, Cotch. I'm getting sidetracked, but anyway, I think you'll like this story. There was all these number plates in a corner that had to get melted down and recycled. So there's all these X number plates, and Shane, Dusty's dad, comes up to me and he's like, "Hey mate, why don't we grab one of these number plates, whack it on my car, and go and knock over a 7-Eleven. And I looked at him, and then he slapped me. He said, "I had you there, didn't I?" I said, my word, you had me. But, Koch, the thing he said to me, of all those Rising Star stories 10, 15 years ago, the thing I'll never forget, he said, "I don't know much about football, but I go and watch my son play, and I'm at the MCG, and I don't watch the game, I watch my son."
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of him. And it just showed me that no matter where you come from, how you look, how tough you may seem, we all just want the best for our kids. And obviously he's no longer with Dustin and the family, but it's really stuck with me that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Shane had a big impact on our lives. I remember the first time, speaking of Shane, Dusty was living with us and Shane had come down from Sydney.
Imposing dude.
Came into our house. He had some sort of tank top on, arms
big guns,
to the point where he used to say that he couldn't put his seatbelt on. He had to get his partner to put it on because he couldn't reach around because of his biceps. Some of the tats on him that kind of gave you a message without even needing him to say it were, intimidating to say the least. But you kind of knew that you wanted someone like that in your corner.
Yes,
and
that's what I thought.
Dusty took so much confidence in always knowing, and it's probably a big part of the reason why, these last couple of years without him has been really challenging for Dusty, and I know that he still battles with that each single day.
I looked at a lot of videos, and there's the one, the final day that you and Jack are playing, and Dusty narrated it. And I was listening to it, and you hear his voice, and it's quite gravelly. It's a good voiceover voice, and it struck me. I know we don't hear from him, but I don't think I would have even been able to pick his voice. And he's a triple Norm Smith medalist. I don't even know what the question is here, Cotch. Like, I would love to know more about him. I would give anything to spend 2 hours with Dustin Martin and talk about why he's been able to achieve what he's been able to achieve. Is he shy? Is he private? Why do we not hear more from him? And respect to him. I got no problem with it. But when I heard his voice, I was like, wow.
Yeah, it was special, wasn't it?
I couldn't pick that voice.
Yeah.
It was really special.
He has so much to offer the world.
No doubt.
And his journey is incredible. Like, there's so many lessons within his journey that the whole world could benefit from. And I hope one day there is a time where he does sit down and tell more of it, and, you know, some of those key moments in his life and the way that that's impacted him. But, you know, I think back to 2018, we were going to a health retreat together, and we didn't realise it coincided with schoolies for Melbourne. So we landed in the Gold Coast, and still were a little bit unaware. And then without a word of a lie, like 500, what are they, Year 12 students, just like imploded all over him. And I was like, mate, just go. You get the cab or whatever, and I'll meet you out there shortly. No one wanted a photo with me, of course. But
who's the bloke with Dusty Martin?
He's a grey-haired guy.
Who's the old bloke?
But I think that's part of, you know, he was such a recognisable face figure, and it probably doesn't help that he's so private and somewhat shy, because that kind of bubbles away and makes it even bigger than it probably needs to be. But after that experience, I was kind of like, I get why he just loves to jet set over to the States, where no one does actually know who Dusty is, what his personal life looks like, what his football life looks like. Like, that was a really significant moment for me to go, wow, the enormity of that, pretty confronting.
Yeah, especially as a young fella. Well, if he ever rings you and says, you know what, Cotch, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. Which one should I do?
I will say Howie Games.
Howie Games or Dylan Friends. I love Dylan as well, and he does a great podcast. I prefer he came on here, but if he chooses to go and
still be happy to listen.
I just want to listen. I just want to hear what he's got to say.